Dr. Heath. I'm always looking forward to our Friday therapy sessions. How are you today?
Johnny, my friend, I'm doing great. It's good to see you here. I have my apple spice tea ready for a great conversation. And what I want to talk about is this bombshell that got dropped yesterday about Trump being found guilty on all counts. And I'm not going to take a side on that, but what I'd like to do is introduce your viewers and listeners to what their brains are doing when they decide what to think about that.
That's brilliant. And so today we're going to discuss something that rather apt then, the mental Olympics of accusation and political perception. And I'm sure that we'll try and be as non-partisan as possible, as you said, which is relatively easy for me as I'm discussing the front runners for the 2024 American elections. So shall we begin with the issue of confirmation bias and how people's pre-existing beliefs about Biden and Trump influence their perception of the accusations and verdict?
You know, that's a great place to start, Johnny. I like to talk to people about a certain kind of fish. The one thing that all politicians can agree on is fishing. And the type of fish that politicians love to fish for rhymes with halibut, but it's not halibut, it's yebbut. So politicians love to go yebbut fishing. Here's what I'm talking about. There will be a piece of evidence, and the politician will counter that with, yeah, but. Someone else will have a disagreement, and the politician will say, yeah, but. If you're in a space on X and there's a debate, people will ignore all the evidence and counter with the fish in their brain, which I call the yebbut fish. But what I want to talk about is how that really sabotages our brains by not at least weighing or considering the evidence. And that's where confirmation bias comes in. Uh, the brain loves to develop patterns, and I talk about that quite a bit on this show and on my midday mindset space coming up here in 10 minutes. And the brain loves to hold on to things, and it's really engineered to do just that. It holds on to all kinds of things, like your social security number. Please don't tell me what that is. That's dangerous on social media. It holds on to your address, your name. It holds on to all this information, and it's very hesitant to let go of that. But the other thing it holds on to is information that you have encoded about your favorite politicians. That's not bad. It's not bad until you hold on to one thing to the expense of allowing different structures in your brain, like the prefrontal cortex, like the temporoparietal junction there, like the anterior cingulate cortex, which, by the way, lets you know that there's a bit of a conflict between what you say and what you do, what others say and what they do, one concept over the other. And so, really, we're sabotaging our brain's use of that particular area as well as others when we refuse to even consider evidence.
This is really, do we need to go through a process, our own personal process of straw manning and strong manning our own arguments when it comes to political belief? Is that the best way to overcome that?
That's exactly the best way, because every time you cast out your hook and fishing, whether in real life or psychologically, you're going to pull in all kinds of flotsam. And there are different parts of the brain that are there at your disposal, whether you decide to use them or not, to kind of weigh those out. And that starts with, first, again, the ACC, the anterior cingulate cortex, letting you know there's a bit of a conflict here to pay and get attention to. But what most people want to do is they want to just double down on those old, long held beliefs and not even entertain that there may be another argument. You're really fast tracking your mental processes when you begin with the falsification of your own long held beliefs. You may decide to hold on to them, but not considering is literally shutting down, so to speak. You don't really shut it down, but you limit its ability. And then guess what happens? You get better and better and better of ignoring evidence. You really become more and more blind to other competing ideas out there. And that's really just not good for our brains.
I like the Dark Commission in the chat said Dr. Heath takes the hell out of health, which I quite like that expression there. Now, what about cognitive dissonance and how supporters of both Biden and Trump will rationalize conflicting information to maintain their political stances?
Well, that's a great point. And this is where the amygdala comes in, because the amygdala chimes in and we will experience discomfort at the dissonance between two ideas on that seesaw of the decision making process. The problem gets to be that we as humans will actually label that discomfort as dangerous or bad for us, and we may self-medicate. I'm not gonna think about it. I'm just gonna have a drink. And I'm not talking about my apple cider tea here. I'm not gonna think about it. I'm just going to smoke some weed. I'm not going to think about it. I'm just going to watch a soap opera. I'm just going to ignore it because, of course, who doesn't like to take a trip down the river of denial? And so that's exactly what we do when it comes to cognitive dissonance. I think it is a normal creator, I'm a believer, by the way, creator engineered ability to have cognitive dissonance, because then that really levels up our thinking. So with my own cognitive dissonance, I really embrace it. I had a friend of mine has a great account at Willing Witness, and he does some great spaces that are really, really just you know amazing. And so he invited me to come and speak, and I said, "Gosh, Derek, I don't know what I think about that." And so this is the problem in our society today, is people don't understand it's okay to not know what to think about something. You can actually give your brain a break, give your life a break, even give your relationships a break, and say, I'm going to need some time to think about that. I don't have to decide right now. This verdict on Trump dropped yesterday. What do we think about that? Gosh, I don't know. I saw all kinds of activity on X saying, well, gosh, can you still run? Can you actually run a campaign from a jail cell? I'm not an attorney or a constitutional scholar, but to my knowledge, he absolutely can. There's nothing actually strictly prohibitive in the Constitution that someone can't run for president in a jail cell. So I'm sure you'll see a lot of jail time or jail cell campaigns after this. By the way, he's kind of setting the stage for that. What I really think is this is going to go at some point, quite possibly, to the Supreme Court, and it will be they that decide. And if there's ever a group of people that need to have this skill, it is Supreme Court justices that can set their preformed confirmation bias opinions aside, listen to both perspectives, and then outside of any politics, decide what really is sticking with the Constitution. What is the most constitutionally accurate judgment to make on this issue? What that is, I don't know. That's kind of out of my wheelhouse. But that is the job of the U.S. Supreme Court. Also, as a voter, I would say, as a voter, this is also your job. Set your politics aside and don't double down on some preconceived notion. Use the mechanics that your brain has available to it, because it will not only help your vote, it will also help your relationships. And by the way, it just might help you live longer, because this is a way of addressing the fight or flight mechanism that would lead us to ignore all of the tools in our mental toolkit.
It will be definitely hard to tackle the next question in the minute and a half that we've probably got. But finally, moral disengagement and how individuals justify or dismiss unethical behavior by political figures they support. How do you explain this?
Well, just really quick, yeah, I think that's a values-based proposition, and it's very interesting to me that people that will sit in a church pew through the week, and this is not just about the politics, this is about our individual lives, and really we're talking about character here. because, as I said before, the old preacher said, what's in the well comes up in the bucket. And so often people will highly value sticking to a preconceived notion over and above what their character is. And they will sacrifice character for holding on to some old belief system. And I think that's probably a bad idea, that first and foremost should come our character. And our character is based on our belief systems, and we should make sure that those belief systems are accurate, realistic, and moreover, get this, a belief system that we could in good faith recommend to our children and our children's children and their children also. This is a generational issue, and we're literally on stage, and the future generations are looking back at us, seeing how we use this great mechanism called the brain that the Creator has given us.
Brilliant way to describe it, and we should all be using our almonds indeed to make sure we make the right decision.